welcome back. Through Tenons. Not such a big deal, ordinarily, but I'm using oak, which is a complicating factor no matter how long the tenons are, and they're going to be a good 6 inches long, so you can't just sort of zip through it. I didn't just zip through it either. I took the long route, and it proved to be advantageous. And I'll show you how I did it. As an aside, my new workbench is done. I can't wait to show it to you. Stay tuned for that after this video series. I must say, a challenge for me in cutting tenons and chopping mortises has always been square. Getting things nice and square. And I'm learning. I'm getting there. Now with this 4/4 piece of wood, I did manage to saw it down square. And I'm proud. So there. But as you can see, I'm struggling with squariness. I will make it happen. I'm going to use my favorite tool in the whole world, the Stanley 71.5 router. Now, you're going to see an awful lot of my forearm as I got used to camera angles. This first pass is meant to show you how long this will take. It takes a while, but not a long time. The second pass, I'll explain in detail why I'm using a hand router to cut a tenon. The big chisel, with the bevel down, to take off the ends, which I'll explain at the next pass. Take off the high spots with the flat side down. Beautiful feeling. Wonderful part of woodworking. Seems like a good idea to finish up part 2 of the Jim Ableton Saga here. We left Rebecca handling these Indians, or they were handling her, and the medicine man was trying to help the girl who has this deadly fever. Well, while Rebecca was chewing these bits of bark that he had pulled out of his deerskin pack, he got out some of the berries and the roots, and he waved a rattle over the girl and watched her reaction. She took a look at those berries and roots that he threw into a boiling pot of water, and she said those are poisonous, more to herself than to anyone. But the medicine man saw in her eyes the fear she had. Note the time. He motioned to her to give him a spoon, and she did so. He motioned to her to give him the bark out of her mouth, and she did so. He took the pot off the fire and added the bark, stirring it vigorously until he was satisfied. He indicated that she was to watch him, and he spooned a bit of the medicine into his own mouth, demonstrating for her that it was safe to give to her daughter. He held up the little girl, propping her up Rebecca spooned a little bit of the medicine into her mouth, and from that very moment, she began to recover. The fever broke the very next day. Now that was help, Rebecca said. And still, a little food and some skins appeared on occasion. And still, no varmints or human predators harassed or killed. You too can be a hero by keeping your knife in a Nestle Quick container, just like I do. You can find that story and many other stories at my WordPress site, johndaviddukejr.com. I'll put a link down below. If you want to patronize me, give me some, financial support, why, head on over to my Patreon site, John David Duke Jr., also link below. Much appreciated. I learned this only recently. I've had this saw for 10 years. I think I've had that very blade for 10 years. Probably could stand to get a new one. It has a tooth at the one end, which you can use to do that. Clear a channel. Get your kerf going. I like the back saw. I like the Japanese back saw. I really do. I have a bow saw that I learned on. I like it too. I will get it ready for another video and use it and show you how it works. See, I learned how to do the camera angle, and you can actually see what I'm doing. I've taped over the end of the tenon itself on the left-hand side, and I've taped over the wood, the stock proper that you don't want to cut off on the right-hand side. Now that's to protect the wood. The 71.5 is a little abrasive, and I've done a lot of work on rounding off the iron, but it didn't help. It's just the sheer friction of it actually does damage to the wood. Now you might be saying, well, why didn't you mount the thing on a piece of wood and wax the wood, and you wouldn't have to do all this silliness with the tape and shoot the blade through a hole in the wood mount there? Well, the 71.5 doesn't have a blade that quite reaches far enough for what I'm doing. So tape and wax on the tool itself did the trick. You just have to pay attention to the tape and replace it every once in a while if it should lose its integrity. Now, why am I doing it this way? There's got to be an easier way with a saw or a chisel. Well, it's oak, and it's 6 inches. This tenon is 6 inches. I didn't believe in a million years that I would ever be able to saw or chisel that much material without getting snagged by the grain. More than that, with a chisel or with a saw, I get impatient. I will speak for myself. And I am tempted sorely to take more material off than I need. With this method, you cannot do that, because if you try to force the blade deeper, it won't go. You'll fight the wood, and it's counterproductive. If you take off a shaving every pass, like I'm doing here, why, you'll never have problems with the grain. I did this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and all my tenons came out really good. I recommend it. You'll notice that as I got deeper here, that I could go a little bit more aggressively, and you can really work it pretty hard because you're bound on either side. By the way, the reason you don't do the end, if you have no idea what I'm doing here, is you have to have square. And before you take that off, you see, you've got square. This tenon is square with the wood which I squared before. Square is really important. I didn't believe that before. It's important. Things go haywire, and you end up with cracked wood and a lot of words you wish you hadn't said. Ah, my mistress, the low-angle block plane. You can cure a lot of ills with a little bit of time with the low-angle block plane. Marvel at the beauty. With the low-angle block plane, you see, you can plane without digging in like an ordinary bench plane digs in, going across the grain like this. You get by with an awful lot with a low-angle block plane. I can't speak highly enough. I don't even know which one this is, but it's got a few doohickeys on it for adjustments at the throat, etc. Oh, look at her. I make a solemn oath today that I will never utter the word thou without it being tongue-in-cheek. Thou. How pretentious. Did I mention that I completed my new workbench? Tasks like this will be an awful lot easier. I am John David Duke Jr., and I am in square. I'm the Woolgathering woodworker. May all your blades be sharp, and may the grain always rise in your direction.